there are only 6 players the 49ers would even consider drafting with the 13th pick, according to general manager John Lynch. He said so on Monday. Who are those players? Let's guess. And when I say who they are, they have to be players the Niners absolutely would take with the 13th pick. You can't throw Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa into those 6 if the Niners wouldn't really take them. If they'd rather have Jimmy Garoppolo than either of those 2 quarterbacks, then Burrow and Tua can't be part of the 6 foundational players, because the idea is to set up a list you could put on your draft board that a chimpanzee could point to when the 49ers are on the clock. Just point in the general direction, and whichever player his or her finger, is pointing at is the guy the Niners take, because they really feel comfortable taking any of the 6 names they've decided on as foundational players. Let's guess who those 6 are. Just made a video on who I think those 6 aren't. Check it out if you haven't seen it. These are the 6 foundational players I think the Niners would take at 13. 1, Chase Young, Ohio State defensive end. He's not going to be there at 13. I'm sure every single team considers Chase Young a foundational player. He's a defensive end, went to the same school as Nick Bosa. Everyone says he's better than Nick Bosa, and Nick Bosa was just the defensive rookie of the year. So Chase Young is 1. 2, Clemson linebacker / safety / everything, Isaiah Simmons. Yes, the 49ers would take Isaiah Simmons. Absolutely, they would take Isaiah Simmons. They could start him next to Fred Warner at linebacker. They could start him at strong safety. It doesn't really matter what position he plays, because think of how Robert Saleh would use him. Robert Saleh is very creative with zone blitzes, showing pressure over here before the snap, then dropping it out and bringing it from over here. You see it all the time. D4 dropping into coverage, Quan Alexander blitzing. He's the master of sort of like, where's it coming from? Is it coming from here, coming from here? Imagine being able to blitz Isaiah Simmons. I mean, Robert Saleh is a chess player. Simmons would be his queen, the player, the piece that can go anywhere, the most dangerous piece. He would make the Niners defense much more potent. Already great defense would make it even better. And he would sort of function as the quarterback on that defense. Hell yes, the Niners would take him at 13, but again, I don't think he'll be there. Okay, another guy. Ohio State cornerback, Jeffery Okuda. In my previous video, if you haven't checked it out, the players the Niners wouldn't take at 13, I argued that usually wide receiver isn't a foundational position. You can win Super Bowls without taking one in the top 15. That's been proven every year, the past 20, 30 years. Cornerback is different. Cornerback, especially if it's a true lockdown guy who doesn't need safety help over the top, that's a foundational position. That's a guy you can build your defense around for 10 years. And I believe Okuda is that good. I think I also think CJ Henderson is that good. I don't think the 49ers do. I think everyone agrees that Okuda is a foundational cornerback. Some people may have issues with CJ Henderson's tackling. I don't. But maybe a zone defense team like the 49ers would dock him a little bit for his tackling and be more comfortable taking him in the teens, in the late teens than the early teens. Okuda, not quite as fast as CJ Henderson, great tackler, all around terrific cornerback, a foundational player. Hell yeah, the 49ers would take him at 13. But again, it's probably not going to be there. Let's get into some guys who potentially will be. Derek Brown, defensive tackle. The Niners traded DeForest Buckner. Could they use another guy to replace him? Yes. Thing about Brown, he's a hell of a run defender. Probably even better than Buckner. Buckner's a great player, but he's tall. And in this wide 9 system, he was getting double teamed a lot by guards and tackles. He has long legs. We're moving him around a little bit. Not his fault. Derek Brown's much stouter. He would improve the Niners' run defense, and when presented with one-on-ones in pass rushing situations, he'd be pretty good. Another guy that looks like a perennial future Pro Bowler at a premium position. Every position on the defensive line is premium. I think the 49ers absolutely consider Derek Brown a foundational player, and if he's there, they're going to take him. 2 more. Alabama left tackle Jedrek Wills Jr. I wrote a couple of days ago in my mock draft that I think the Niners are going to take a left tackle with their first pick. If Jedrek Wills Jr. is there, they're taking him, I think. He's from Alabama. He's a legit left tackle. He has very quick feet. He has very quick hands. And he's in shape. He's not 370 pounds. He's exactly what the Niners look for in a left tackle. He could replace Joe Staley in a couple of years and be as good as Joe Staley was. And you say, well, offensive tackle isn't even a need. Why would they go offensive tackle? Well, besides the fact that it's a classic foundational position, Joe Staley's going to be 36 next year. And he got hurt twice last year. Not once, twice. Can the 49ers count on Staley to play an entire season next year at 36 when he couldn't do it at 35? Maybe they could, but if they took an offensive tackle and said, we can't count on Joe Staley. Anything we can get from him now is great, but he's starting to get older. He missed games last year. We got to protect ourselves. That's a fair thing to say. So you could take Jedrek Wills, have him learn behind Joe Staley at first. Maybe you could play guard, or maybe you could just sit behind Staley. Then if Staley gets hurt, now you got your replacement, your long-term replacement. I think it's very possible the Niners take an offensive tackle, and if Wills is there, it's him. If he's not there, and he may not be there because he's terrific, then left tackle from Georgia, Andrew Thomas. That's who I think the 49ers are going to pick. That's who I mocked them to take in my latest and only mock draft. Andrew Thomas from Georgia. Another left tackle. Could replace Joe Staley this year if necessary, or next year if the Niners want to move on then. Left tackle is the classic foundational position on offense, and I think the Niners are looking at it. If Thomas is there, that's the pick. Of the 6 I mentioned, I think he's the most likely to be there. Young, Simmons, Okuda, Brown, Wills, and Thomas. Now, what's interesting is those are 6 players I mentioned the Niners would be comfortable taking with the 13th pick. There's a very high chance that none of those 6 players will be there, right? So what do? If all those guys are gone and they're sitting at 13, do they take a guy they don't really love, they don't really consider a foundational player, or do they trade down? I think they trade down. I'm expecting them to trade down. If Thomas isn't there or Wills isn't there, expect a move down to maybe 18 or 19, right in front of the Eagles. Everyone knows the Eagles want a wide receiver. Maybe the Niners would feel more comfortable taking a wide receiver at 18 or 19 as opposed to at 13. Maybe at 18, they would take someone like LSU wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Just a thought.